believe this. We are on the lunch break in the questioning of Joe Batty, an anti-fascist activist who was targeted by the undercover police officer Carlo Ceracchi. I've had some feedback about the sound. Apparently, it's been a bit difficult to hear, so I'm not sure if you'll be able to hear it over the loudness of Dave's shirt.
Hello.
I'm joined by
hello from my shirt.
Dave Smith from the Blacklist Support Group and a comrade of Joe Batty's. Joe's being asked further questions about the reporting on him by Carlo Ceracchi. We've got to the plot, the supposed plot to firebomb a charity shop, which has been the cause of much interest all throughout, and everything to do with the deployment of Carlo Ceracchi. He's also been questioned about his knowledge of the relationships, or the deceitful relationships that Carlo Ceracchi had with Lindsay and Donna McLean. What did you make of what Joe had to say?
Joe comes over like Joe. I've known him for many years. He's always he answers a question, he's always quite, straightforward, he's also articulate. He can can string a sentence together. It's not in and R in and R, sort of like a lot of the police do. Sometimes he's said things and he's openly said, look, I've offered up this information. It doesn't necessarily paint me in a great light, but I want to tell the truth. So whenever he says anything, I think he comes over as a very reliable witness, Yeah,
incredibly credible, absolutely. I mean, particularly there were some things which I think other people may have just neglected to mention because as nobody else had mentioned it, they don't particularly, like things like drunkenly banging on the window of this charity shop, which has only come from him, but yeah, he's very keen to give the full answer to everything he can.
Yeah. And, not only in oral questioning, but he actually wrote it in his witness statement, which is sort of, oh, wow. So, okay. Which, once again, doesn't necessarily paint you in a great light, but his key thing here really, I've known Joe for decades, I knew him when, he was big mates with Carlo. And Joe's always been up front about it. They were good friends. They got on, very well. But he's just, quite honestly, I think he's just personally insulted about the way he was, he was almost reeled in. I mean, the officers who spied on me, I can't really say I really had that many. I wouldn't call any of them friends, but I mean, you and, some other, certainly the women activists knew them really, really well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's the act of betrayal, I think, that he's so annoyed about.
It's difficult not to take it personally when you personally knew someone and had them inside your trust circle, I guess. And the betrayal of that, there's a personal response, which I think is coming across from Joe, as you say, very articulately, but he's insulted by, as he talks about, they spend a great deal of time together socializing, both in pubs and bars, but also regularly going to the steam rooms.
I mean, when he actually tells a story in the pub, he said, we literally spent every Saturday morning naked in the steam baths in East London. It's like, as you do if you go to those bars, you go for a beer afterwards and you go and watch football kind of stuff. And, that level of sort of, this is how much he was a mate with me. And then you read reports that he's written about you at the time that are just like, just insult, just literally making things up. One of the things that Joe was very clear of, and I said it in my witness statement as well, because Carlo writes, there's quite a few reports that he writes about me as well. And in my witness statement, I said, I didn't really, all this stuff about anti-fascism, I can't actually remember him being on many of the anti-fascist activities we went to. He writes about them, but almost second-hand, he was, I remember being in pubs with him, having a chat. I remember being at meetings with him. I don't really remember many of the actions that we did. So it's almost just lazy. As Joe said, actually, what did he actually do? He seemed to love coming down the pub and having a beer. He loved, being, mine host and, doing shots of grappa, homemade grappa that he made and, giving it, partying and the rest, but not much of the actual stuff that he was meant to be, reporting on. And then he does write reports based on something that wasn't there, and they're all very inaccurate. And as Joe said, almost written in a particular spin, a particular way, in order to basically justify his continued deployment. Continued is, oh look, taxpayer funded alter ego, basically.
Yeah. I mean, it's something. It's interesting, isn't it? Because I think it's something that we heard a lot from Peter Francis. That a lot to do with the way in which the undercover officers infiltrated groups meant that a lot of the time you didn't need to be there. Because as long as you had credible sources, and because he'd befriended so closely so many people involved in anti-fascism, he had those credible sources. He could just spin what he heard from them in order to fill the kind of lines that he needed to in order to further his deployment in his reports. So in many ways, because he was so close to those anti-fascists, he didn't need to be on those anti-fascist demonstrations. And because of this constant exaggeration of perceived risk that seems to be a real hallmark of everything that the SDS did, he probably managed to spin to his bosses that, it was far too dangerous for me to actually attend too many of these protests. I mean, regardless of what the facts on the ground really were.
Yeah, I mean, it really strikes me from just before Christmas, listening to Mark Cassidy, where he said, I didn't go on much of these stuff. I just listened to what, Mark Metcalf was telling me. I just report back from what Mark Metcalf had said. It was like, for God's sake, you've been paid extortionate amounts of money, with extortionate amount of overtime, with handlers following you, with all the back room on costs involved, for basically sitting in a pub and chatting to someone about what they did at the weekend, and, reporting it as fact, and, both, Dan, who you interviewed earlier, myself and Joe, we're all trade union activists. We're all, we understand victimisation and blacklisting works. Even if it's not always, by multinational companies sharing documents with the police, sometimes it's just by word of mouth. And once these stories get out, you can't put them back in. It's like sending out something on Twitter. Once it's in the ether, it's out there. You can't really withdraw it.
Yeah, well, quite. Yeah, and I mean, and this there seems to be so much of the stock and trade of the undercover cops, suggestions of things, which are then constantly gone back to the use of language, everything's about attacking, confrontation.
Well, the questioning by the Council for the Inquiry is like, I mean, we've all seen it now. We've been here enough. It's like the same question or the same 2 or 3 questions, just over and over and over again. It's all about violence. They read the report from the police officer as if, because it's written by a police officer, it must be fact. And then you're asked the same question from every single report. And as Joe said, I'm answering this ad nauseum. I've answered the same question 20 times. This is not what we did. They're completely exaggerating it. In fact, in some cases, not even exaggerating, completely fabricating it. Things just didn't happen, and they're just completely making it up.
Yeah, I mean, I would say Deputy Counsel of the Inquiry, Tim Salisbury, is he's very apologetic about the fact that he keeps asking the same questions, but he keeps doing it. Also, just as an aside, he keeps referring to Antifa.
I know.
Which I mean, popularized by Donald Trump, this mispronunciation of Antifa, as in anti-fascist. Pretty obvious why the name is pronounced the way it is, given what it actually refers to. Hilariously, Joe kept giving the correct pronunciation, which Tim Salisbury, suggesting that he's not really listening to the answers, totally ignored and continued using the wrong pronunciation.
But also, if you're, I'm sort of assuming if you're quite a top end of your game lawyer, that you're counsel for the inquiry, giving evidence about, interviewing people in public inquiries, that you do your research. And if someone came up with a long name that wasn't obvious how it was pronounced, you'd find out how their name was pronounced beforehand. But they've repeatedly done that. My union, there was a report from Mark Cassidy, I think it was. I'm trying to think. It was either Mark Cassidy or Peter Francis, where my previous union, it's pronounced NATFE. It's the lecturers' union. It's the union for further education, and they constantly kept referring to it as NATFA. So, for God's sake, if you're going to ask the question, go find out how it's bloody pronounced. It's not that hard. I kept looking around. NATFA. It's like a trade deal or something. I mean, one of the other things that happened earlier on, because I've been sitting next to Dan Gilman throughout this, a number of the police reports that were put up on the screen that I was at the event and Dan was at the event as well. Sometimes Dan's name's in it. We haven't been the same things. We haven't been disclosed. So the first time we're seeing them, and even Joe was told, "Oh, you haven't seen this," because so the first time you've been disclosed, it is at the hearing in the witness box. You know, the lack of disclosure is absolutely insulting. You know, there's sort of years of my special branch file that they haven't disclosed to me, and not just mine. I mean, everybody who came up has said the same thing. I remember when Suresh gave evidence, he just talked about there's mountains of stuff, on him and the campaigns that he was involved in that just hasn't been disclosed.
And what was particularly frustrating is that many of these documents have been disclosed to others, and it includes the names of other co-participants who are being spied on or being reported on, yet those co-participants are not getting to see it.
Completely. There's a report that's in Frank Smith's disclosure that identifies me as being one of the leading organisers of the away team, and at one point being the London organizer for the away team, which hasn't been disclosed to me. It's been disclosed to Frank Smith. It's like, what,
these are not incidental mentions.
It's not like, oh look, it just happened to be at the meeting as well. A big long list at the back. It's quite significant things that they're accusing you of. But also, not only was it that they were reading it out, it's on the screen, and the screen at the back where we're sitting isn't working. So Dan's sitting there, you can't even see what's written about you. And it wasn't not working once. I mean, we had to Dan had to go out about 4 times to, complain about it. And then in the end, they had to get someone in to try and get the thing working, fiddle around with the AV. I mean, it's a bit amateur hour, to be honest, for something that's spent billions. But a lot of money on.
Yeah, millions, many millions. I mean, it is particularly gross that the whole point of being a co-participant in the inquiry is that you would get the opportunity to see the information that's held on you before it's presented to the public. Yeah, as you say, it's not just that we're seeing them for the first time at this hearing. These things are being broadcast live on the internet. I mean, well, with a 10-minute delay, but this information, which these people who are co-participants in the inquiry has your number. They could have released that to you. It's simply a matter of including you on the list of people it's disclosed to, yet they've failed to do that. And I mean, it's not just once or twice, but it's a consistent problem. It's been called out to them for a long time. We're 11 years into this process now, and they're still getting it wrong.
I mean, they're getting it wrong, and not only that, of course, I mean, I've got a personal bugbear on this, of course, because, I'm not, other people at least going to be allowed to go into the witness box and challenge what's been written about you. Whereas I'm seeing stuff, I've written my witness statement now. I can't add anything more to the witness statement, but, Mitten has made a judgment and I'm not allowed to go and sit in a witness. Not only me, actually, there's others as well.
Many more.
Who have, Mitten has just decided, no, we're not going to ask you to come and give evidence. So, God knows what's been written about people. And once again, you say it's put into the public domain with your name in it. This could affect people's employment, for God's sake. And
especially considering it seems like the inquiry, if something isn't challenged, they assume it's gospel. Which it's very frustrating, as you say, about the way in which the questioning is formulated, where it's like, well, it says in the report this, so therefore, and that's acted as if that's true, with no research being done into the wider events of the time, any contemporaneous reports or anything else, just purely looking at what's in the report and going, oh, this must be the case. Farcical. Also, Dan was asked about the deceit.
Joe was asked.
Sorry, I do apologise. Joe Batty was asked about the deceitful sexual relationships that Carlo Soracchi engaged with Lindsay and with Donna. He said, quite interestingly, I thought, that he spent a great deal of time talking to Carlo about the relationship with Lindsay, particularly.
Or the breakup, because he thought Carlo had treated her appallingly. So therefore, I had a word with him more than once about it. Well, he said, 6 to 9 months sort of conversation about it. So it wasn't something that was, his poor treatment of women was noticeable at the time, let alone, at some point in the future.
Well, quite, and I mean, but it also just it shows again that, he wasn't going on a lot of these demonstrations. He was relying on the conversations he was having with activists. Yet the majority of the time he was having these conversations, it was about other matters. It was about the deceitful relationships he was engaging in, which obviously were covered. Joe was quite clear. It gave him extra credibility. The fact that he was dating someone who was known to so many other activists, and really,
but he's just quite clear about Lindsay. Lindsay was a political activist, although she might have been less active at the time, and whereas Donna was a member of the same union, worked in the same workplace, and both of the times, Carlo is having a relationship with someone who is sort of friends of friends, acquaintances with the people he's spying on. It's so calculated, it's so sort of, this is going to get me closer to the action. This is going to get me, more credibility when I'm involved with these people, so they won't question, my, what I'm up to, kind of stuff. I mean, it's something we've mentioned before. It's not about the sex.
Right.
It is about the sex.
It is part about sex.
If it's about you personally, it's difficult not to take it personally. But it's not only about the sex. It's the fact that this is state sanctioned.
Yeah.
That's it's the personal and the political. It's not it's not either or. It's both.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
And both is appalling.
Yeah. Yeah. And also it speaks to this. We've heard from the Category H lawyer from Charlotte Kilroy, this idea that these officers were invited to have their dark playground. That there's this that the undercover officers who were deployed into the lives of people were given the opportunity to act without any form of consequence. And I think particularly at the moment when we see all the revelations that are coming out from the Epstein files and so much else, the way in which human beings are viewed as disposable by the state, about how people can be used and abused for the furtherance of the ends that the state has, and that's perfectly okay. And I think that the spy cops themselves they got a little taste of what the ruling class is able to do at any time.
Yeah. I don't think there's anything else I can add to that. I think you've said it there.
Yeah, we haven't finished for the day. There will be further questions. There will be also questions from others after lunch.
There's one more thing I do want to add before.
Please.
One of a number of times when we did laugh, one of the ones that I haven't tweeted it yet, but I intend to, was when Joe said, "I stood for election in the City of London. I'm actually a free man of the City of London." The idea that I am some, nefarious sort of, I'm going to, sort of petrol bomb a charity shop, or I'm going to just deliberately go around people's houses and sort of go into their front rooms and give them a kicking in their front room kind of stuff. It's just complete and nonsensical. Why would we do that? We're all trade unionists. We all understand that if any of us got arrested, we'd all lose our jobs. But it's certainly the kind of job that him and Dan were doing.
Yeah,
what on what planet is this? Even when you read it, as their superior officers read in these reports, in what planet do they think these people work in? Homelessness. They're interacting with the police on a daily basis. They must know what their job is. They must realise that they come into contact with the police, in their role in homelessness. So, in what case? Does anyone read this stuff and think that this is plausible? It is literally, they're just all in on it.
Yeah,
basically,
yes,
that's it.
Literally,
everyone who's working for the SDS is in on it, and they understand what's going. A bit like, I've just read, read Kate Wilson's book, Disclosure, and there's
quick review.
It's I think it's the book. I mean, there's lots of books written about the spy cops scandal, but it's the one that goes into the most detail, precisely because Kate has had the most disclosure to everybody else, not through the public inquiry, but through a completely
the IPT insanely, which still blows my mind.
Investigative Powers Tribunal, a secret cult that everyone thought you were going to get nothing out of. Wow, look at the massive victory. And she's got. It's the fact that there are times when she's literally in bed with the copper and she's remembering something that happened, and then she puts the bit that's been disclosed where it's time stamped, and it's like it's 2 a.m. in the morning, they're in bed together having a conversation, and he's reporting the conversation to his handler who's 2 or 3 streets away. It's just like, what on earth is this level of intrusion? And that goes back to the personal is the political as well.
Absolutely.
Sorry, I went off on a. Oh no, yeah. So a review of the book. Of all of the books I've read, it's the one where the most, how you see quite how deep the intrusion is. Yeah, completely. Yeah, buy it.
Yeah. Please buy it for your friends. We will have further questions this afternoon, but I think the majority has probably been gone through already. Is anything else you think that needs to be brought up in the questioning? Still not covered yet?
I hope he gets asked about blacklisting.
Yeah.
Obviously.
That's what I was trying to tee up.
And then afterwards, I hope to go down the pub with Joe and have a drink.
Yeah, fair play. All right, well, we will be back with another video at the end. I won't be doing the Twitter Spaces this evening, which I always used to do. I'm stopping doing that. It's just too many different things to cover during the inquiry, and I've got to be realistic about it. So, yeah, if there's anything you want to know, please leave a comment. There have been some comments. The vast majority of them appear to be utter nonsense, as is often the case. I've noticed with the portrait broadcast on YouTube that is part of the way that StreamYard works, seems to result in loads of trolls who just ask nonsense questions. Stalin or Trotsky? Neither, comrade. Absolutely neither. Yeah, so yeah, none of the comments have any sense. But if you do, fantastic coverage. We have one.
We like positive ones.
There's one sensible
I'll go and swing
comment.
from my phone if you want.
Yeah, great. Cheers. But yeah, so please do tune in later on. If you've got anything you want to ask, feel free to engage with me on whatever social media platform you're using. I'm kind of on nearly all of them. This is going out on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, or X as it's called now. So there's plenty of opportunity to engage with it. And we'll see you all later on.
We haven't moaned at Musk yet, bloody bastard.
Bloody bastard. Yeah, they're all bastards. I really have I'm no fan of any of the oligarchs who run any of these platforms. Download Upstream. Apparently, that's the next one. Apparently, which is owned by isn't owned by billionaires, Palestinian owned. We'll see if that catches on. I'm never sure that it will. I mean, I've tried repeatedly to leave Twitter, but the audience is still there, so I'm still using it. Infuriating. Thanks very much. We're going to go have some lunch, and we'll see you at the end of the day. Bye for now.
Love and solidarity, people.